NFC, and even though the Cowboys hold a one-game lead in the NFC East, they've of course lost 3 of their last 4 games, including a loss to New England a couple of weeks ago where they were held to just 9 points. That led at the time to Jerry Jones saying he was frustrated and disappointed, calling the loss a significant setback and blamed coaching. Things of course didn't get better on Turkey Day when Dallas lost at home to the Bills. Jones said after the game that while he was disgusted, he was going to be sticking with Jason Garrett. Something he also said a couple of weeks before he fired Wade Phillips. For more on the Cowboys, we welcome in our NFL insider Todd Archer into the conversation. And Todd, coming off last week's loss on Thanksgiving, what's been the mood around the Cowboys locker room?
Yeah, well, considering all that's been swirling around this team, losing 6 of 9, Jerry Jones's comments seemingly every day, Jason Garrett's future, it's been surprisingly good, perhaps. Ezekiel Elliott said practice on Sunday was chippy. That's a sign that the players were still all in. Talked to a couple other players. They said the same thing. Zach Martin said, look, we can still do everything we wanted to do at the start of the season when we were 3-0. Now, of course, they have Philadelphia to thank for being in the spot they're in, but they're not going to apologize for it either. And Dak Prescott said, look, talk is cheap. It's time for us to go do. And that's what they plan to do Thursday against Chicago.
Yeah, I'm glad you brought up Dak. How's he been handling the recent pressure surrounding the team's struggles?
Yeah, he's leading. And you talk about the top trait that he's had since he got here in 2016, and it's that. Guys buy in on him. He wants everybody to look at him in times like this. He wants everybody to see that he's the guy that they can turn to when times are bad. He's earned that, and that's really why he's a captain. Do you sense more guys looking at you now and looking at you to be a leader and be the...
I hope they are. I'm not sure if they are, if that's their mindset or not, but I hope they are. I'm just because of the way that I'm going to go about this. I've faced adversity a lot in my life, on and off the field, and at this moment, I'm just doubling down on myself and my teammates. I've got confidence in what I can do and what these guys around me can do, and I hope they're looking my way.
I talked to Jason Witten out of the locker room on Monday, and he said, look, we follow Dak Prescott because of his accountability, because of his positivity. All that stuff rubs off on each other. Now, well, they really just got to go win a game, right?
They certainly do. They have a good opportunity to do that. Stop me if you've heard this before. Against a Bears who on paper seem inferior to the Cowboys. Todd Archer joining us from Dallas. Greeny, let's keep the conversation going.
Yeah, thank you, Al. I want to bring our resident Cowboy into the conversation, Swagoo Marcus Spears, who's had all sorts of travel difficulties, but there he is.
There he is.
He's alive and well, and it is great to see you, Marcus. And obviously, this is your team, and you make your home there in Dallas, so you're very close to this. How would you describe sort of the feeling in the air for a Cowboys team that is in it, but for the grace of the Eagles and their struggles? How would you describe where they are right now?
Greeny, I think optimism. First of all, I miss my guys. I miss y'all so much. But I think optimism, man. When you think about the Cowboys and where they are positioned, we had a conversation a week ago about would Jerry make a move. And hindsight, it was smart. They're still in the number 1 spot in the NFC East. And thinking about this whole thing, having some optimism within myself, the Cowboys are not going to be an easy out if they sneak into the playoffs. And I think for more than anything, when you think about them going forward, if they can get better, if they can finish some of these games, if Dak takes on that personality and the rest of the team takes on that personality in which he talked about, I'm not sure if you want to face the Cowboys in the playoff, especially if you're a team that has done a tremendous job throughout the NFC to find yourself in the playoffs, and then you got to face a roster like this with the Cowboys. It may be a difficult out. The fact that they can backdoor this thing because of the NFC East being so weak, and then you deal with all of the talent that's amassed on this roster.
If you just look at the way things are shaping up right now, 1 of 4 teams figure to be going to play the NFC East champion when it's done. Whoever doesn't win the NFC North, so either Green Bay or Minnesota, or whoever doesn't win the NFC West. I mean, incredibly, San Francisco, some people think they're the best team in the entire National Football League. So if it's the 49ers that show up in Dallas that first weekend of the NFL playoffs, are they going to be looking for a new coach that following Monday?
Yeah, that'll be the last week for the Cowboys if the 49ers show up. it won't be pretty. When you look at that football team, obviously playing in those elements in Baltimore is a tough spot with how Baltimore is rolling. But San Francisco, to me, has nothing else left to prove. They can morph into what they need to morph into to play. And based on the way Dallas has been playing defense, you would give them the edge, and obviously on the other side of the ball. But like I said, G, this is the NFL. We've all been around this game for a long time. You need 3.5 hours on Sunday to be better than your opponent. And I'm not sure if there is an overall arching confidence that the Cowboys can't put together and drive home with this talent, with what they've shown us to have the ability to do, that they can't squeak out a win. But I just don't see them beating the San Francisco 49ers if that's the matchup in the first week.
Swagoo, I've got less than a minute here, but I need two answers from you. Is there any chance that Jason Garrett is their coach next year? Is there any chance that Dak Prescott isn't their quarterback next year?
No, Jason Garrett will not be their head coach next year, and Dak Prescott will be their quarterback. It'll be an interesting offseason. You got my boy D. Graziano up there to talk about contracts. I'm sure they'll get Dak done. I do not think that Jason Garrett will be the head coach for the Cowboys, no matter what happens, outside of a Super Bowl.
All right, yeah. I mean, Tannenbaum has already signed Dak Prescott, and he's not even working in the business anymore, but he's already trying to throw $40 million at him. All right, Swagoo, stay with us. We need you all morning long. Meanwhile, Elle, let's go back to school.
Yeah, let's go college football. Of course, Alabama's big loss to rival Auburn in the Iron Bowl on Saturday has all but crushed their chances of making the playoff. Our Football Power Index has them at less than a 1% chance at the moment of getting in. There was really question marks anyway coming in, and if you go back to when the season started to go awry, you could go to week 11, right? Joe Burrow and the Tigers won at Bama by hanging 46 points, snapping Bama's 8-game winning streak against LSU. A week later, Tua Tagovailoa injures his hip against Mississippi State, an injury that would require surgery, and Mac Jones would take over at quarterback. And then that took us to this past Saturday in the Iron Bowl when Auburn put up a 48 ball in an upset over their in-state rival, essentially knocking Alabama out of playoff consideration. And apparently we've got a really famous viewer, because we started this discussion last hour in Alabama, and Paul Feinbaum said Nick Saban's best years are behind him. And then Stephen A. had something to say. Can I say it like how Stephen A. would?
Yes, please.
Blasphemy! Out of the mouth of Paul Feinbaum on Get Up this morning about Nick Saban. Absolute blasphemy. The only thing that would have been more Stephen A. if he said, "What are you on, weed?" Paul Feinbaum,
Stephen
your
A. gets up
reaction.
this early? I didn't know that. Ooh.
He has a show coming up.
I forgot.
Yeah. What do you make of his comments, and do you want to back down from
Here's
what
what
he said?
troubles me about Stephen A. Nick Saban invited him down to speak to the team before the season, and they've been in a free fall ever since.
I love this. So it's Stephen A.'s fault. The decline of Bama's tied to Stephen A. I love that.
What is because listen, obviously rumors of their demise might be greatly exaggerated, but it seems like the playing field has been leveled a little bit. What do you make of it, Dave?
I think we need to slow our roll, Mr. Feinbaum, on the Bama is done thing. No one has started more true freshmen in the country than Alabama. They had 2 pick six on the road and still lost by 3, even though devastating injuries. The most fascinating thing, look at the passion with Nick Saban. The most fascinating part, because I know people are going to say, like, well, Ohio State, LSU are coming. The transfer portal is going to be a big part of this conversation in the next couple of years with Bama. How does he handle the transfer portal? Because LSU benefited from the transfer portal with Joe Burrow, and Ohio State has benefited from the transfer portal with Justin Fields. So, like, that to me is the biggest conversation over how does recruiting continue to go.
Dan, usually people in my position misquote people in your position. You're now misquoting me as a backup quarterback. I find that hilarious.
Why do you have to
The point being, I have never said they're done. I just said the dynasty's window has closed.
Nice word.
And the dynasty window is dominating, and they're not dominating. If you look at the last 3 games against top opponents, Clemson, 28 points. LSU, they just got gashed badly. And then again against Auburn, their defense has been dreadful. And you can't win with a defense playing that poorly, giving up 40-plus points in every one of those games. And the lack of discipline. One of Saban's own players said after the game, and against the good teams, we just can't really seem to hold it together. Back to your question.
Nick Saban is the king lion. There's a bunch of other lions coming for his top spot.
If you study history, which I know you did at UConn, you find that dynasties like this slowly come to they slowly begin to dissipate, and then suddenly they fall off a cliff. Nick Saban is still the best coach of all time, but I don't think his program is in a position right now to dominate. And one more thing, Dan, the transfer portal, I think that is Nick Saban's biggest enemy.
Okay, I'm less of a Lions fan and more of a Tiger. So let's bring in Marcus Spears, our resident Tiger. What do you think? Do you agree with Paul or with Dan?
I agree with Paul, and it really has nothing to do with Alabama. It has everything to do with how everyone else has responded. This is a process of being a dynasty. Everybody else builds and they transfer power in order to try to make themselves better so you aren't dominant anymore. I thought the LSU win this year signified something in the SEC as far as shifting the balance in recruiting. When you think about what Dabo has done at Clemson, his ability to recruit, Kirby Smart has a big play in this as well with what he's been able to do as far as being on the road. The number one thing that Bama has always done was out-recruited all of these guys. I guarantee you, after that big win that LSU had, Georgia's playing on the national scene, you think about Clemson, Ohio State, these are going to become destination places for a lot of guys that had Bama first on their list. Does it mean that they're not good or they don't have a chance to win the national championship? Absolutely not. But this long run of dominance that you see, I think in football in general, is about to come to an end. Now, it will be dominated by 6 or 7 teams, but it won't be dominated solely by Alabama anymore like we had grown accustomed to. And because they were so great, we only compared them to Alabama. So I think some context is warranted here.
Yeah, and I also believe that maybe like the fear factor is gone, right? Like a lot of people would grip when they would play Alabama, and now people are playing them and punching them in the mouth.
Careful with that.
Okay.
I think it's a little bit like Tiger in golf. I mean, we expect him to win every time. Now he won after a couple of years, and suddenly, wow, Tiger won again after 6 years.